So I brought my kids over here to help Bud tonight. It's hard. I miss her. I miss her more and more. It's been 4 months since she passed away. Nothing's right in our world. As I sit here alone in the house, I didn't know what else to do besides pull out my phone and talk to you. It's a beautiful sunset that I'm watching out there. One that my mom must have watched many times from this window. It's one thing I always loved about this property was the beautiful sunsets. I can remember them from the time I was a little girl. It's interesting how bad you just want to talk to them one more time. Hug them. Hear their voice. When they're not there. It's so strange to open that door still, and there's just no one on the other side of it. As I sit here in this chair that my mom took her last breath of life in, and I sit back and think about just how much she's truly missed. I'm just having a moment. Thought I would share it with you. It's a beautiful sunset. Anyways, it's so darn hot. I told Bud I would bring the kids over after the sun went almost down. Much cooler. Talk at you another time. Thanks for always being a safe spot for me to jump on and talk.
Hi. I only watched your first video because I didn't want to lose the momentum of what I was thinking and feeling when I watched it. And I'll watch your second one here in a second. But I wanted to apologize for not coming back on here before now, because that was Thursday. And you've been a safe place for me several times on the Marco Polo, and I appreciate that you feel like you can open up and talk to me and just share that emotional moment with me, what you were going through. I know how lonely that must feel sometimes, to wish you could talk to someone. Oh, I just hunked, sorry. Wish you could talk to someone and there's no one really that you can open up to. So I appreciate you bending your ear. I was bending my ear, you know what I mean, leaning on my shoulder, whatever that looks like with Marco Polo. It's kind of strange. But yeah, I'm glad to have shared that moment with you, because while I lost my dad, I don't know what you're going through. I can only imagine what you're going through, because when I lost my dad, I only lived there for a couple more months before I moved back to Arizona. And in my brain, I didn't have to face the loss unless I came back into town to visit. So every time I come back into town, it's an emotional roller coaster for me, because it's like losing him all over again. And it's like grieving all over again. And I never really, my stepmom, I mean, my mother-in-law, not my stepmom, my mother-in-law and my husband, and maybe other people too, think that I shouldn't be grieving for as long as I've been grieving. He's been gone over 20 years. But maybe they're right. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should have stayed in the house and grieved over and over and over again, like you're doing, and you're doing it well. That's the part that I'm like, I wish I had what you're doing. You're processing, you're going through memories, you're touching her things, you're sitting in her chair, you're crying about the not being able to see her on the other side of the door, and imagining how many sunsets she must have enjoyed sitting in that position that you're sitting in. Like, all of those things are so healthy for your grief, and I get that, and I wish I would have had that. I wish I would have had that moment after moment after moment after moment, but all I get is a quick, this is too hard, and then I get to leave, and I get to avoid, and I get to not deal with it, and then every time something comes up for me, breathe, and then, okay, distract, work, like Grandpa's doing, work, like Darren's doing, everyone's grieving in their own way, but they're not getting over it, you know? They're not getting over it. That's a poor terminology. You'll never get over it, right? It'll always hurt when you think of your mom, because you'll think of how much you miss her. But I think at some point, right, if you look at the stages of grief, at some point you come to acceptance. And have I come to acceptance after 20 years of avoiding it? No. I mean, in some levels, I guess I accept some of it, but I still have a lot of feelings about it. So I just wanted to take a moment to appreciate your honesty, and I hold a space for you to continue to share with me what's going on. Can you tell my dog is sitting on my chest? I'm just really impressed with you and how you aren't avoiding it. And maybe there's times you do, and that's too cool. Everybody does that. You're just not going to take 20 years to come to that acceptance, I don't think. I think you're going to hit that. I think you're going to hit that acceptance thing sooner than any of your siblings, way sooner than your dad, way sooner than me. And like, I'm coming over to my mom's house right now, right, to come visit with her and talk with her like I do on Sundays. And I cannot imagine what that's going to be like when I can't do that anymore. Whether she moves from this house to a city that's not so easy to get to, or if she passes away, I go through that, oh my gosh, that grief's going to be hard, where I can't just come over and visit her anymore. And I didn't have her for so many years because she just moved up here last year. And so I did grieve the loss of my mom, not being able to have my mom when I wanted to, but of course she was still alive, so it wasn't the same. So now I have her, and I rely on her emotionally just to be present. And now your mom's not present, and so that's why I'm saying I don't understand what you're going through exactly. I can just try to understand, especially because my grief with my father has not been addressed. My grief with my father has not been accepted by me. Anyways, I'm gonna watch your other video, and I will be back. Love you, bye.
Thank you for your kind words. I just went to Walmart to get some more curtain thingies. I hate this mask thing, Crystal. I hate it with a passion, as you well know if you read any of my Facebook stuff. Anyways, I give you permission. I give you permission, young lady, to properly put closure to your father's death. It's time. There's something you're hanging on to, I guess. It must serve you. And that's okay. But it's also okay to let it go. It's not that you are going to love your father any less. You know? Maybe you just need permission. When you lost your father, you were at a very different age in your life, before you had anything figured out. So probably all you knew how to do was what you did. And that's okay. It is what it is. I hope I'm making any sense. It feels like I'm making some sense, but maybe I'm not. I wasn't aware of where you felt like you was in your father's death, because it seemed like to me that you had handled it to a degree. I thought, but you know, you're the one that knows. So I think you're right, though. We don't get over it. We're gonna miss our parents. There's always a longing to see them again, I think, to one last sunset or one last... Sorry, cars behind me. Whoa, sorry, dude. I kind of pulled out too far. Holy crap, Walmart's busy. I don't want to touch my eye now. There is nothing wrong with being proud of who your father was and what he stood for and what he accomplished in his short life here on earth. And there's also nothing wrong with embracing that he's no longer here and having the gratitude in your heart for what he did give you. You know, and you're to that age that and understanding that you know he wasn't perfect, just like I know my mom wasn't perfect, but we can take the good we learned from our parents and catapult us forward to make us better, to make their grandchildren better. You know? I don't know. That's the best way to honor your father and his legacy, is by making your own life a success and the lives of those children you brought into this world. And that is so awesome that Matthew is eating more food. I saw your post. That is so exciting. I can only imagine as you sat there and watched him. I'm trying to put myself in your shoes. And where you're his mother and you've seen him from little age to big age now, and you know what he did and didn't eat. That had to have been heartwarming, just to sit there and be like, holy crap. Under your breath, just kind of watching in awe, him taking a new leap, a new step. Huh. That would have been interesting to just watch, being his mom, you know? And that cute picture you shared of Brooklyn on Facebook the other day, you two were taking selfies. She is turning into a beautiful young woman. And you're going to be able to put in your kids some really good stuff. Things you have figured out. Oh crap, why is my windshield wiper fluid light? That's weird. I don't know what that light means. Just talking to myself. I think one of the hardest things as a parent, I know for me, is the days I feel like I failed. When my children fail at something, or my children screw up. Can't help but feel like a failure for the rest of that day, and sometimes even week, month. Because you're like, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I put this in my kid? But we can only do what we can do. I don't know why I went there. I'm just rambling while I'm driving home. I can't believe it took me 6 years to get my blinds and curtains up. Seriously, 6 years since I lived here. Not blinds. My blinds have been up, but the curtain rod and the draperies and all that, yeah. But it sure is hot up here, so I'm trying to keep the house. I think I explained this to you already, but it's working. It's working. It's such a hard decision. I just spent like 25 minutes sitting in the curtain row deciding what the heck to buy. It's like, it's kind of a big deal. You're like, do I want this color? Do I want that color? I don't know. I don't know. Okie dokie, artichoke. I am almost home. Huh. So much to think about in life. I was having a pity party for myself a couple of the days this week, and I knew I was. And you know, pity parties aren't any fun when you recognize you're having one. You're like, knock it off. You know better. It wasn't very fun. I thought, oh, this is stupid. But I'm over it. Okay, bye-bye.
Hello. I'm on my way home from my mom's. I just watched a Marco Polo, and I'm going to start backwards and go as far as I can remember. Yes, when we are having a pity party, just like you said, it must serve you somehow in your earlier part of your polo. It must serve you somehow to have a pity party. I know it serves me sometimes to have a pity party, but then when you're done with your pity party, you're like, yeah, this isn't any fun, and then you get out of your own pity party, right? I'm getting better at recognizing when I'm in a stuck spot and addressing the stuckness so that I can climb out of it. What I was doing before, and what I was always doing, was trying to avoid getting stuck. But sometimes you just got to get stuck for a second so you can climb out. Does that make sense? Just for a second. Otherwise, it's almost like a monkey riding your back, and you're just, it's dragging you down, and you're like, it's just nagging at you, like, ugh. So just deal with the monkey and then move on, you know? I appreciate your words about the closure I have with my father. And I'll be honest with you, Dolly, only a part of me has an issue, not all of me. And what I mean by that is there's a large part of me that has moved on, and I do appreciate where he's at. And I feel like I'm well adjusted. So I appreciate you reminding me of how far I've come since his death, and I'm so much more out of the woods than some of my other siblings are and stuff like that. But I think what's coming up for me lately in this last week is the trauma that I had as a child that I used to solely blame on my mom in leaving us. But after my dad's death, I didn't dare talk about the trauma that my dad and Rosanna put us through. And I say trauma like it's so traumatizing, you know, like I was in war trauma. But no, there is such a thing as complex trauma, which means it's repetitive abuse, whether it be emotional abuse or psychological abuse or physical abuse. Even if it's subtle, even if it's just it's barely there, it's a traumatizing experience. And for example, when I had emotional needs that I could have used a mother for, Rosanna, oops, honked again. When I have emotional needs that Rosanna could have embraced me on, or could have mothered me on, or could have loved me, she rejected me. And she didn't just reject me by ignoring me. She rejected me by calling me names, or speaking down to me, or making me feel like I wasn't worth her time. She didn't value me, and it did not help to have someone like Lisa tell me what Rosanna really thinks about me. as I was getting older, I would go and babysit for Lisa, and me and Lisa would have these heart-to-hearts, and Lisa would almost be like playing both teams. Like, she would listen and wah 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 to Rosanna. The two of them would talk, but then she would tell me what Rosanna really thought about me, and that didn't help. Not because I was already struggling with how Rosanna treated me, but it didn't help to be told that she didn't love me, that she couldn't stand me because I was Mary's daughter and I reminded her of Mary. Lisa would tell me stuff like that. And so you got that trauma, I call it trauma, combined with the trauma where I watched my brother get beat up several times by my dad, you know, smack in the head, or pushed across the room. Like, he pushed him across the room, and he, you know, was back slammed like he was just an 11-year-old or something. He wasn't big. He wasn't able to take that kind of punishment. I'd have to sit with Christopher, and Christopher would cry, but in Dad's face, he was, you know, ready to fight him and ready to take his punishment like a man. Like, I'm not going to cry in front of you. I don't dare cry in front of you. But behind closed doors, I would cry with Christopher, and my heart would break every time I watched Dad do it. And I'm not trying to talk bad about my dad, but that's the part I haven't addressed. That's the trauma that I haven't addressed. I haven't addressed it because my dad's dead. There's nothing I can do about that. There's nothing I can have a conversation with my dad and get him to apologize, or, you know, in a lot of ways, I feel like my dad did apologize by dying. So I feel like I have to forgive him and forget it and not talk about it, not bring it up anymore. But that's where my hangups are with Jim. Jim reminds me of my father. Jim's anger reminds me of my father's anger. Jim has pinched the back of his son's neck. When we first got together, we were coming out of the mall, and I'll never forget it. His son wasn't walking quickly enough or whatever, and instead of asking him kindly or gently nudging him across the parking lot, he pinches the back of his neck, showing that he's angry, and pushes him. And his son's like, you know, and that just, like, that made my stomach drop. It made me question this man that I'm about to marry. It made me question everything. Like, whoa, I didn't know you were like this. And I had a heart-to-heart with Jim. I demanded that he never be like that. And then in 2010, this was a few years later, I got in Jim's face because he was getting jealous about something stupid. And I yelled at him. I got so angry and so upset that he was trying to control me with his jealousy. And by standing up to him, that must have threatened him, and he slapped me. So this violence that I've been holding on to from my dad's life, because my dad wasn't perfect, and nobody is, right? But because of his death, I've never dealt with that pain, with that trauma of watching my brother get abused, with the intimidation that I had. Oh, I better be a good girl, or otherwise Dad will treat me like he treats Christopher, because Christopher was not a good kid. Christopher liked to rebel. Christopher liked to disobey. Christopher liked to just push Dad's buttons, push Mom's buttons, push Rosanna's buttons, push Grandma's buttons, push my buttons. I mean, Christopher just was always his own free bird, and you could never get Christopher to do what he was supposed to do. But my dad thought the best way to do it was, you know, spare the rod, spoil the child sort of approach. And at the same time, he would apologize when he would hit Christopher. He would say, I'm so sorry, that's not the way I want to raise my kids. My dad was like that, and I vowed to break the cycle. I really apologize. And he's, you know, sobbing and bawling to me and Christopher and just begging us to forgive him. And so when he dies, of course you forgive him, you know, of course you're like, okay, no problem. But in my telling of my story with Jim and what frightens me and what I'm scared of, and why don't I just stand up to him, and why don't I make decisions on my own? Like you going and buying curtains. Oh my gosh. I could never buy curtains for the house without Jim next to me. I could never go and get oil changed in my car without Jim telling me to go get the oil changed. I can barely go to the grocery store and buy things that I went to the grocery store today and I wasn't sure I was buying the right things. Like, I am so afraid of upsetting Jim in some slight way because I don't want his emotional abuse. And furthermore, if he emotionally abuses me and I stand up to him, I don't want his physical abuse. And even though he hasn't hit me since 2010 and he swore he would never hit me again, that fear is still there. Why is that fear still there? Because I never dealt with the trauma of my childhood. I never dealt with the fears that I had. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I can't forgive my dad any more than I have. I guess I'm just still very much in a childlike mind with that, where I don't feel strong enough to stand up to anybody. And when I did that one time to my husband, I didn't think I could match him, I guess. I didn't think I could take him on, so I avoided him. And then I learned how to just make sure I fall in line. Am I making any sense? I'm probably just rambling about... That's why I noticed that it's showing up for me in this way, and that's why I don't think I've dealt with it quite right. And when I go to visit people in Utah, and I go, you know, recognize that my dad's not around and deal with that grief. What grief am I dealing with? Am I dealing with the grief that I didn't get to say what I wanted to say, that he didn't get to accomplish what he wanted to accomplish, that I did, like, what deep grief am I dealing with? So I just recognize where you're at with all that. And yeah, the masks thing, it's really just about what everyone's comfortable with. If you're not comfortable wearing a mask, don't wear a mask. And if everyone else is comfortable wearing a mask, let them wear a mask. I don't think it's as dramatic as it's made out to be in the media and on Facebook and everything. No one's forcing me to wear a mask. They ask me to. I have a choice if I want to or not. If I don't want to and they won't let me visit their store or their place of business, that's fine. But I don't see the harm in wearing it for short periods here and there. Now my children wearing it all day at school, nah, I'm not okay with that. Is there another option? Yeah, there's virtual learning. Okay, well, I guess that's the option we're going with, because I don't want to do the mask thing all day. I don't think anybody should have to breathe like that all day. That's not good. I don't know how the people at their work can do that. Anyways, I'm not really in the mood to talk about controversial stuff. I know you and I sit at different angles of it. We don't have to agree eye to eye to talk about it, right? Because that's what healthy adults do, is they talk about their angles without... I saw your post that someone got upset and said goodbye to a relationship or something, a friendship, because they had different opinions. People do that all the time, right? Even before COVID and Corona. But that just tells you how mature people can be, or immature. As if you don't believe the same thing I believe, so I'm going to unfriend you. Something like that, right? Anyways, we are home. Let's go home, Tink. She's smiley. She's like, yeah, I recognize this place. I know where I'm at. I don't remember if there was another subject we were talking about. But thank you for chatting with me. I wonder what color of curtains you picked out. I've lived in this house for 9 years and I've never picked out curtains for any house. We need curtains. You know, you asked me about bed sheets the other day. I could use curtains. I need to look at that. Anyway, love you. Talk to you later. Bye.